Let's play Ezra and Nehemiah. This is the full detailed version. It walks you through the setup and also explains the rules and how to play the game. It's intended for you to play along as you're watching the video, so stop the video at any time you want to try out some things. If you already know how to play the game and you just want to see the setup and a brief reminder of the rules, see the reminder video. So let's get started with the setup. First, get out the game board and place it in the middle of the play area. In the set of small cards, there are 6 gate cards. Place them to the right of the main player area with the outline of the worker on top. The solo game will play set up like the 2-player game. So in the 1 or 2-player game, as well as the solo game, we'll take the muster gate and the east gate. We'll flip them over so that you see the numbers 1 and 2 for the workers and place them over the spots on the playboard that are labeled muster gate and east gate. In the small cards, there's also 6 neutral wall cards. Again, in the 1 and 2-player and solo games, we'll take 3 of those neutral wall cards and place them between the muster gate and the east gate. Take another of the neutral cards and place it to the right of the east gate, and 2 of them and place them to the left of the muster gate. So that's a total of all 6 of them are going to be placed in the central spaces of the top of the board. For each of the other gates to the side of the board, again for the 1, 2, and solo player games, place 2 coins on each of the cards. For the 3-player game, we place only 1 silver coin on each of the gates. We don't place the muster gate or the east gate out onto the main board. And we only place neutral walls between the muster gate and the east gate. In the game, there's 104 resource cubes and a bag to put them in. Now, in the official setup, it says to pull out 10 of each of the resources before you put them in the bag, but I find it easy just to pull them out of the bag, so I keep them in there. The bag just makes it easy to mix up the cubes as you take them out to place them on the board. So that's what we'll do next. At the bottom of each wall section is a diamond shape with 4 different colors representing the 4 different types of resource. And this tells you how many resource cubes to put on each wall space. So randomly draw resources to fill the wall spaces for each wall space on the board. When you're done, your board should look something like this. Place all your tokens and meeples in the main supply to the side so that they're in easy reach. I've created a box to hold mine, but that's not necessary, of course. In the game, there's a set of tiles that look like this. The fronts look this way, and the backs look like this, and these are called the scroll tiles. So the gold scroll tiles, we'll mix them up, so you'll separate all the tiles according to their back color. And the gold ones, we will put 1 out on the top row of this section of the board is dealing with the Torah. And so that will leave, there will be 6 of them, and that will leave 2 gold scroll tiles left. Then mix up the wooden scroll tiles and place them on the middle 2 rows of the scroll of the Torah area here. Then randomly place the 3 stone scroll tiles face up on this bottom row. So that's going to be Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, and Ezra placed in random order. Notice to the right of each of the rows, there's a symbol that represents the number of victory points that you'll get at the end of the game for each scribe that's in this area. We will now place bread tokens next to these areas that's 1 less than the victory point. So for example, for this row, we'll place 3 bread, 2 bread, and 1 bread. If you're playing with less than 4 players, you'll place this temple tile on top of the temple area. There's a side for 3 players, and there's a side for 1 or 2 players. And of course, with the solo, you'll use the 1 or 2 player side. In the smaller cards, there are 2 double-sided cards that are called altar cards. Now randomly select one or choose whichever one you want and place them in this area right below the altar, aligning the banners. Now notice that there are 3 rows, and those represent the 3 rounds that we're going to play, and there's prophets that are above the banners. The prophets are wooden meeples. The left one, the darker one, represents Zechariah, and the lighter colored one is Haggai. And if you'll look at the top, for each round we will place these prophets on the numbered spaces above the altar track. So for example, we see Zechariah, place him at 3, and Haggai at 9 on the altar track. From the larger cards, there are the 3 hero cards. Place them above the main board. In the multiplayer game, randomly determine who's going to be the first player and give them the shofar. In the solo game, the AI takes the shofar. Give each player a player board and a player 8. There are 5 different types of development tiles that we'll give to the players so that they can customize their board. There's an undeveloped side and a developed side on each of the different tiles. And you can see that the developed side has a brown background and has victory points with a gold kind of altar showing. Each of the tiles of a given type are slightly different to give a little bit of randomness to the customization. These tiles are called the guard tiles, then the laborers, the farmers, the traders, and the elders. So place the tiles in the player board, with the undeveloped side up, so the guards will be here, laborers, and you can see the little icon showing that that's a laborer, a farmer, a trader, and an elder. Each player will have 16 workers of their own player color choice. We will give each player 6 to start with, and the other 10 will go into the main supply so that they can get them later. Each player will also have a tent-shaped token that they place in this area of the board on this middle circle. So as you have other players, just stack them up. Each player also has a flame-shaped token that can be put on the 0 space of the altar track. Again, stack them up as you add the different players. Each player also has a square grooved token that is used for tracking victory points. Place that on spot number 10. Again, stack them up. Each player also has 10 character cards and 12 wall cards with a background that matches their color. Shuffle them up and put them in decks that are face down. Place them next to the player board and draw the top 4 cards of the character deck into your hand. At the bottom of the guard tile to the lower left is a set of resources. So draw those resources from the main supply and place them into spaces on your guard tile. Each player then gets 5 silver and 3 food from the main supply. There are 3 different types of blessings, and on the player board there's a track, so place your blessing markers in the 0 spot for each of the different blessings. Underneath the temple there are Levite tracks for each of the player colors. So take a meeple of the player's color and place it at the bottom of the Levite track. That meeple should be taken from the main supply and not from the player supply. There are 4 gates at each of the corners of the board, and so the players will place one of their meeples on one of the gates in the 4-player game. So you start from the last player to the first and choose one of the gates to place your meeple. In a 2-player game, each player will have 2 gates, starting with the last player, then the first player, then the last player again, then the first player, and you get to choose. In the solo variant, you pick whatever 2 corners that you'd like, and the AI opponent gets the other 2. In a 3-player game, one of the gates will be neutral, and you can place a white meeple there if you want, but that's not necessary. In a 1 or 2-player game, take the 2 white meeples and place them on the 2 outer scrolls of the bottom roll. Most of the components are considered unlimited, so if you run out, use a suitable substitute, but the workers are considered limited. You never have more than 16 total. The player's hand limit is 4. For the solo game, you'll have these additional steps. First, you'll take out the AI player board. It's a double-sided board, and there's stars on the different sides. So as you're starting out, choose the side that has 1 star. There's also a solo player aid that you can place next to the board. There are focus cards that have the lion on the back of them. Shuffle them up and create a stack and place it in the section that has the lion on the board. Do the same thing for the scheme cards, which have a picture of a lamb on the back of them. The AI will start with workers, silver, and gold as shown on the board here, so you can just place them next to the AI board. The rest of their workers go to the main supply, just like the other players. And the same thing for the tent, the VP marker, and the altar marker. They go on the tracks, just like a regular player. The AI will use the wall cards, so you shuffle them and place them next to the player board, but they don't use the character cards. Place the blessing markers on the blessing track, just like for a normal player. The AI will start with one Levite, so place them on the Levite track. And as we mentioned earlier before, they'll have 2 gates on the corners of the board, and we'll need to place the 2 white meeples up here on the bottom scrolls. So that completes your setup. So let's talk about how to play the game. Like any Euro game, you'll basically be taking actions in order to collect resources. You'll exchange resources in order to gain other resources and gain victory points to win the game. The player aid describes the basics of each turn. On the turn, the first thing that you'll do is you'll play 1 character card. Then you'll execute 1 main action. You will also do, you have the chance to do either trading or developing a space as your auxiliary action. You can do one of either of the 2. You can also use a trader and an elder if you would like. And the last thing that you'll do is you'll draw a new card into your hand. There are 3 types of actions that you can perform. One has a red banner, and that's the temple and altar actions. The gray banner is for building and walls and gates, and the blue is for Torah and tenting. You will take 6 turns during each round. Those represent the days of the week, and on the very last day, you'll take a Sabbath, and so you'll rest. And that's essentially the end of round activities. You'll complete 3 rounds or weeks within the game, and then you'll do your final scoring. The back of the player aid describes the Sabbath and end of game scoring. For each turn, you will have a hand of 4 character cards that you draw from your draw deck, and then you will play one of the cards. To play the cards, you will place that in one of these 3 spaces. And then you can use the banner actions to perform your main, or the banners to perform your main actions. You can also potentially trade according to the card that you've just placed down. If you have other cards, you can't trade using those. You have to trade using the cards you just placed, and it's shown on the bottom of the card. Instead of trading, you can develop an area on your player board, which means you pay the resources, gain any rewards that are shown in green, and then you flip the tile over. The other thing that you can do is you can do a trader action, which is over here, which is different than the trade action. This trade is for your character, but this is a trader. You place a worker and get the value or resources shown in one space. So I can choose either one of these spaces. And when I place my worker there, I get that action. So later in other turns, I can't use that again. The other one I can do is an elder, which is shown right here. And again, I place my worker in one of the spots. And typically what the elder gives you is extra banners that can be used for your main action. Now I can do the trade, the develop, the trader, or the elder action in any order with respect to the main action. So you choose the order you want to use. And finally, after you've done all of your actions, you draw another card so that you have 4 cards in your hand. If you pay attention to the board, there's a lot of iconography that tells you how to play the game and what to do. Around the outer edge is building the walls and the gates, and that requires the gray banners, and you can see the gray banners printed on the board. This section right here, the temple, the Levites, and the altar are all about the red banners, and you can see them printed on the board here. You can see the kinds of things that happen shown underneath the temple area. Over here, we have reminders that tell you what happens during the game, such as at the Sabbath time when you tuck your cards. In round 1, you tuck 1. In round 2, you tuck 2. Round 3, you tuck 1. This, if you are the leading in the altar track, the person that's the furthest ahead in the altar track in round 1 gets 1 worker, and round 2 gets a worker, and in round 3 gets 3 victory points. This tells you how much it takes to remove rubble in the wall, building the wall or clearing the wall area and gate area. And here is the discount for building walls. The final area of the board over here is the Torah area up here, and that requires the blue banners and the tenting. So those two together are the blue banners for the main action. So now let's talk about the gray banner types of actions. They're a little bit involved, but they're probably the easiest thing to understand because you are clearing rubble and building walls and gates. Now here I have the board kind of turned upside down compared to previous views so that you can just easily see the printing and can read right side up. So now as we build a wall or gate, the first thing that we have to do is clear the rubble. And then once we've cleared the rubble, we can pay resources and banners to actually build the gate or the wall. Now, it costs banners in order to clear rubble, and that's shown in that reminder section I just described. To remove a cinder costs 1. To remove wood or stone costs 2 for each. And to remove gold costs 3 each. Notice that you're not allowed to clear rubble on more than one section. You can only work on one section at a time, but you can try to clear the rubble and build the same thing if you have enough banners and resources. So for example, in this particular gate situation for the dung gate, to remove this rubble, I have to pay 1 banner, so that would cost me 1 gray banner. Then I would have to have a brown resource and 2 white resources, that's wood and stone. So that would be a total of 3 more banners, so that's a total of 4, plus these 3 resources, and then I could build the dung gate. Now there is a kind of substitution, again shown on that reminder on the altar track, where you can replace gold or banners for each of these resources. So for example, instead of stone or wood, I could use gold, or I could use 3 banners. So if I use 3 banners for this wood, it would take me 1 banner to remove the cinder, 3 banners to build the gate, plus 3 banners for the wood, so that's a total of 7, and then 2 stone resources. Alternatively, for this wall, it would take 2 banners for the wood, 2 banners for the stone, so that's a total of 4. And then I can use these resources to build just like they're shown here. So that's 4 more, so a total of 8 banners. Then I would need to have an extra wood because I can use these, but I need to have 2 wood and 1 stone. Now, when you're working on the section of the wall or gate, you don't have to clear all of the things, all of the resources on a particular area, and all the resources that you do clear go to your board. They go to the guard area over here, and they fit into one of those spaces. So in the undeveloped side, you have a limited number of resources that you can store. Once you've upgraded this, then you have an unlimited number of sources that you can store. You also aren't required to clear rubble and build in the same term, but you can do that. Now notice, if we remove all the resources, on the walls there are blessings. So the different walls have different blessings, different types. And the person that removes the last resource, so let's say that one player had removed everything but this, they don't get a blessing. But when you remove the last resources, when you clear the last piece of rubble, you get that blessing. You don't get the blessing when you build the wall, and you notice here on the gate, the gates don't have blessings. So let's walk through a simple example of working on the wall here. Let's imagine that you play your player and it has 3 gray banners. So now you decide you want to work on the wall area. 3 is not too many. You could clear a little bit of rubble. You probably couldn't clear rubble and build. But you notice over here that the elder has an action where I can place my worker and I can gain 2 more banners. So that now allows me to have 5 total banners. So just focusing on clearing the rubble, we can look at these sections of the wall here. This would take 2, 4, 6, 7. So a total of 7 here. This would take 1. This only takes 4. And this takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So really clearing this one is a good idea. We would waste 1 banner, but we'd be able to completely clear the rubble and place that in our guard area. In addition, we will gain 1 orange blessing for clearing all the rubble. Now that allows us to move the orange blessing forward 1 space. Now, if you notice above each of the blessing track here, there are rewards that you can gain, but you don't gain those rewards when you move a single blessing forward. You only gain those blessings when the very last those rewards when the very last blessing reaches that. In other words, when the entire set of blessings have passed or reached that area. So, for example, if I had blessings like this, then I still haven't gotten any rewards because the red one is way behind the others. But if I move the red one here, I get to move my flame forward in the altar area. If I move the red one here, then I'm able to move the tent forward 1. But in our example, we've just moved the orange blessing forward 1. So now we've used an elder action, we've done a main action. We can also use a trader action up here. So we could choose anything that we want. But in this particular case, I'll show you why in a second. I'm going to choose this area, which allows me to choose any resource, and I'm going to choose a stone. I place it in my guard area, and I also get a food or bread-shaped token. So that's the trader action, but we can also do a trade action as part of our auxiliary actions. I can either do a trade for the character that I've just placed down, or I can develop one of these areas. Well, I don't have enough resources to do development of any of my tiles, so I will do a trade. And that's why I got a stone, because here my trade action for this character allows me to turn in 1 stone to gain 2 coins. And I can do that any number of times. So if I turn in 2 stones, I can get a total of 4 coins. So that will complete my turn, and now it's the next player's turn. Now let's continue this example to continue talking about the wall and the gates. And let's imagine it's my turn again, and I play the new character card here. And now I've got a total of 4 gray banners. These 2 banners up here are no longer applicable because I didn't place my worker in this turn. Now in this particular example here, I can build this area if I have 4 banners. So I've got enough banners. If I have 2 wood and 1 stone as well, then I can build that wall area. So let's imagine that we've got the 2 wood and stone in my guard area. I've got the 4 banners. So I turn in the resources to the main supply. Then I draw the top 3 cards off of my wall deck, and I can choose to play any one of these. Notice that they have different victory points and different rewards, instant rewards that I get. So in this example, let's assume that I'm going to play this card. Then what we do is for the 2 remaining ones, I choose one of them and place it face down on top, and the other one I place face down on the bottom of my draw deck. Now I'll place the wall card on the wall, and I've rebuilt the wall. And notice that my color is associated, so I know that I'm the one that built that wall. Notice here, for these rewards, I've chosen these so that you have victory points in both cases. One is silver, which means that you take count of it immediately, and one is gold, which means that you count up those victory points at the end. So how do we do the one for the immediate victory point? Well, that's what the victory point track is about, and we just move our marker up a proper number of spaces. Building a gate follows the same basic rules as building a wall. You have to clear the rubble. And then once you build the gate, you place the card down. Now the card doesn't come from your stack of wall cards. It comes from the gate cards that are next to the board that we put there during setup. But then you place your worker into this area on the card, and you gain the little instant reward message here. So for example, for this particular gate, you get to move your tent forward one space and collect whatever reward is there. Now your worker will stay there for the rest of the game, and you will total up victory points at the end of the game. Now you don't collect this reward here at the top when you build the gate. This is done when you connect a gate to a wall or a wall to a gate. And let me explain that. So right now, if you look at it, the wall sections right next to the gate, both of them are destroyed. They're not built back yet, and so there's no reward that's collected. However, now that there's a gate built, if I were to build a wall here, then I have now made a connection between the wall and the adjacent gate. And so all players that are related to either this gate or this wall here would gain this reward, which is a wood and a coin. Now, since this is the same color, it's the same player, we only collect that resource once. However, if a different player had built this section of the wall, they would gain the blessing, and this multicolored blessing means they can choose which blessing they move forward. But they also gain the reward over here of a stone and a coin, but so do I, because I own the gate and they built the wall, so we're working together. In a very similar way, if a wall exists and I build a gate next to an existing wall, then we follow the same rules, but the wall, person with the wall, and the person with the gate gain the reward here. Now you can see that it's possible that if I build a gate, I can build next to two portions of wall, so it's possible for 3 different players to gain this wood and coin reward. But again, if one player owns more than one of those sections, they only get the reward once. Now, during setup and during most trade actions, you will pay. There are coins that are placed on the gate if the gate has not yet been built. When you build that gate, if there are coins on there, you collect those coins. So that's the essence of building the walls and the gates. So now's a good time you can pause the video and go through your character cards and find the ones that have the gray banners and pretend going through turns, practicing building, clearing the rubble, building walls and gates, and then making sure you understand how this works. Now let's talk about the red banner actions, which allow you to work on the temple and contribute to keeping the altar burning. Every time you add stone or wood to the temple, you gain a victory point. If you contribute with gold, you gain 2 victory points. If you contribute a resource to the altar, you can move either 2 or 1 space on the altar track. As you move your flame up the altar track, you'll gain different blessings and resources, and at the very 3rd round, you'll gain victory points if you're ahead of the furthest ahead prophet, Haggai. In order to add resources to the temple or the altar, we have to have Levites. We can only add a resource for each Levite we have in our Levite track. So let's work through an example and assume that you've played the singer, so you have 3 red banners. We can do a trader action and an elder action, so we will choose to do the trader action to get a resource. We will choose a wood resource and a food. That means we now have 2 wood and 1 cinder because of our initial guard action it's set up. For the elder action, we will play a worker on the second slot so that we can get 3 more banners, giving us a total of 6. As we look at the temple and the altar, we have 2 wood, so we could contribute to the temple and to the altar, and we have 6 banners, so we could do at the 3 level. However, in order to do that, we have to have 2 Levites, because in order to contribute to the temple or to the altar, we have to have a Levite for each action. But if we look at our Levite track, we only have 1 Levite right now. Now, Levites allow you to either contribute a resource or you can use a Levite to add a banner. So we've got 6 banners now. If I use this Levite, that would give us 7, but we don't have any Levites to contribute to anything. So if I got a second Levite, I could make 2 contributions, 1 to the temple and 1 to the altar. Now, the rules allow us to add a Levite to our column if we have either before our main action or after the main action, never in the middle of it. So we haven't yet started our main action. We've just taken a trader action and an elder action. So we can contribute a Levite to the track here. It will cost us 2 food. Notice that the cost of adding a Levite is shown on the left-hand side. And we will get an immediate reward of gaining 1 cinder. Those rewards are shown on the right-hand side. Now, of course, if you don't have enough food to contribute your Levite, you can't do that, and your Levite has to come from your supply, not from the main supply. Now, to contribute to the temple, you always have to add to the leftmost column. You can choose any row that you have banners for, so we will use 3 of the banners and contribute here. We have to have a Levite, so 1 Levite and 3 banners allow us to put a 1 in the first column, and that means we get an immediate victory point, and that means that we move up our marker on the victory track 1 space. Now on the right hand side we see an immediate reward we get, so we get 1 food for placing that particular resource. Now we'll talk about this more during the Sabbath, but it's important to know that the Levites, you do not have to feed them during the Sabbath. Okay, so we've already spent 3 of the banners, but we have 3 more left, and we could contribute to the altar. We could, if we wanted to, contribute to the temple again at the 2 or the 1 level, but let's go ahead and contribute to the altar. And so we'll spend 3 banners, and again we have to have a second Levite. So the Levite and the 3 banners plus 1 wood allows us to move up our flame 2 spaces on the altar track. And for each space that we pass, you can see that they have rewards, instant rewards on the bottom. So we gain 1 food and 1 silver. The golden flame areas don't have rewards underneath them, but you can gain rewards in some cases. In particular, one of the tiles allows you to gain rewards if you wind up on that space. Now for the temple, you leave the resource there. For the altar, you can just put it back into the main supply, or you can leave it until the next turn. Someone else adds something in there just for a thematic kind of evidence, but you can also just put it directly in the main supply. Now notice that the temple has sections that are divided by lines and a different shading of the color. When a section is completely filled out, the person that filled out the last on that section gains the reward. So for example, on the first section, the player that finishes that gains 2 food. In the middle section, the worker gains 2 victory points. Now notice this symbol. It actually means that the player with the most Levites is the one that gains the 2 immediate victory points. You can look in the book to see the different symbols in there. And if the third section or the entire temple is filled out, every single player gets 1 silver per Levite that they have. When the temple is completely filled, you cannot work on it anymore. Now we will talk about this more when we talk about the Sabbath, but at the Sabbath time you need to be equal to or ahead of the prophets, and you can see on this card it shows you the results of what happens if you are not far enough ahead. For example, you can see on the very last round, if you're behind Zechariah, then you lose 3 victory points, but if you're ahead of Haggai, you gain 5 victory points. So contributing to the altar is a way to move your flame up easily. So now is probably a good time to pause the video and take a couple of practice turns with the red banner actions to make sure that you know how those work. Now let's talk about the blue banner actions of teaching the Torah in this section of the board or tenting around the city in this section of the board. The tenting action is pretty easy to understand because as you move your tent around, you gain whatever reward is shown by the symbols on the map. However, the teaching the Torah section is mechanically fairly easy, but it's difficult to know the symbology, so it's probably a good idea to read on the back of the book. Or actually just one page inside on pages 38 and 39, all of the symbols and the meaning of each of the different scroll tiles is explained. However, in very simple terms, the very top row is the gold scrolls, and they are almost always giving you victory points at the end of the game. You do get some immediate victory points when you place your scribe there, but the gold symbols show the victory points at the end of the game. The tiles in the middle 2 rows are often giving you victory points, immediate victory points if you place your scribe, but they have conditions such, for example, here, if you take a trader action, you can spend a silver and repeat the action. So the middle scroll tiles are giving you ongoing benefits throughout the different rounds. If you place a scribe on one of the bottom row tiles, it's either Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, or Ezra, then you will gain the hero card. You will get an immediate reward that is dependent upon the round in which you placed your scribe. So for example, in Nehemiah, if you place your scribe on his tile during the first round, you'll gain a stone. For Zerubbabel, you'll gain 2 food, and for Ezra, you'll gain 1 cinder. However, if you place it on the second, all of them you'll get a gold, and on the third round, you'll get a wild card blessing. So immediately after you gain your immediate reward, then you'll take the card and tuck it behind your player aid so that for the rest of the game that you will get this 1 banner. For Nehemiah, it's the gray banner. For Zerubbabel, it's the red. And for Ezra, it's the blue banner. Now, in the 1 and 2 player games, you start with white workers or scribes in the outermost tile areas. They do not block you from placing your scribe there. We'll talk about that in a little bit more after we talk about placement of scribes. So you can think of the white tokens or the workers as placeholders, allowing you to move up the rows. So let's talk about the multiplayer 4-player version so that you can understand how these scribes work. So at the beginning of the game, in the 4-player version, all of the scribes on the bottom row are available. All the scroll areas are available. So you can put a scribe on any one of the bottom ones. You can't put a scribe on any row above the bottom. So now once I place a scribe there, I can't place another scribe on that same tile. So a colored token or a colored worker does block other workers from being able to take that space, but it opens up the 2 spaces above it. Notice the way in the arrangement, the pyramid type of arrangement allows you for every tile that has a scribe on it, the 2 adjacent ones above it are available. So for example, now if I put a worker on Zerubbabel, we would have these 1, 2, 3 tiles available. These 2 you could get to through Nehemiah, and these 2 you could get to through Zerubbabel. So now this means that Ezra is still available, so you could put a scribe there, but you couldn't put a scribe on Zerubbabel or Nehemiah. So now let's imagine that I'm the purple player and I want to place a scribe. The cost of placing the scribe is shown here on the left side, so the number of banners and either gold or silver needs to be played. For example, the topmost row requires 7 blue banners and 2 gold, whereas the bottom row requires 3 banners and 2 silver. So if I'm the purple player and going to place my scribe, I could put him on Ezra or any of these 3 tiles above. So let's assume that I'm going to place it on this middle tile here. So I have to pay 5 blue banners, 3 silver, and then I could place my token here, but I also have to pay a silver for each for a path that I branch off of. So in this particular case, I could pay that silver to either Nehemiah or Zerubbabel, the player that's representing Zerubbabel, the red token player, or the yellow token player. Now, if I branch off my own player, I don't have to pay the extra silver. I still have to pay the silver shown over here on the board. Now, once I place a scribe, they stay in that position and I gain the rewards. In some cases, I gain immediate rewards. This is a loss of a victory point here, but my scribes don't have to be fed during Sabbath. In addition, if I'm the first player to place a scribe on a particular row, I gain the rewards on the right-hand side, which is food. Now, returning to the white workers, you can possibly see why you need them now. So it allows you to advance up the track. So if I'm going to place a scribe here, I can place it on any of the sections here on the bottom, but let's assume that I place it on Zerubbabel. I can also place it on the row above it in this position or that position, or in these right twomost positions because I'm branching off of Ezra or branching off of Nehemiah. So when I do this, I would pay one. Now, since this is a white token, I don't pay it to the other player. Instead, I pay it to the main supply. And I would still gain the food for being the first one to go to that row. Now, if instead I wanted to place my worker on one of the heroes, Ezra or Nehemiah, the white worker does not block me, but when I place my scribe there, it pushes their scribe up to the outermost edge. So the white worker will always move up as far as it can go to the next available space. So on the right to the rightmost edge and on the left to the leftmost edge. So let's imagine for a moment that I wanted to place my scribe on Ezra. And the workers looked like this. So there's already other workers above Ezra. When I place my worker on Ezra, again paying the 3 blue banner cost and the 2 silver, there's no one that I'm branching off of, so I don't have to pay an extra silver. This white worker will move up to the right. But there's already a worker there, so it will move up to the right again. Again, there's a worker, so it will move up to the top space. Now, this white worker is really a placeholder. It's allowing you to move up. So once it gets to the top, then you can just put it away in the box. The same thing is true as if there was already a worker here. It would go all the way up and then just go directly to the box. Notice that even though there's an available space to the left, it will not take the left space. It goes all the way up to the rightmost edge. The same thing is true on the left side. It just stays to the leftmost edge. And let's work through one more example here. Let's assume that we've got workers set up like this. And so now I'm able to move all the way up to the top row. That will cost me 7 blue banners and 2 gold. And I could place my worker either in this spot or that spot. It would additionally cost me 1 silver that goes to the supply because of this white worker, another silver that will go to the yellow player, and since I'm the blue player, I don't have to pay another silver. And since I'm the first one on this row, I would also get the food. All right, so let's work through a couple of quick examples to see if we can understand this. Let's say that I play the teacher on the first round. That gives me 3 banners to work with. I decide then to also play an elder to get 2 more banners, so that gives me a total of 5. Let's assume that I only have 1 silver and 1 food. We do see that the teacher has the trade action of turning in 1 food to gain 2 silver. So that gives me a total of 3 silver. Alternatively, I could place a worker up here in the trader section to gain 2 more silver and a food. And since we can do this teacher action or this trade action here for the character an infinite number of times, I can turn in the food again and get 2 more silver if I want them. So as of yet, I haven't done the main action. I've only done my trade action on the bottom, and I've done a trader action here and an elder action. So at this point, I can't develop, even though I've got enough coins to actually develop this area. I can't do that because I've already taken the trade action for the character in my auxiliary action. Instead, what I'm wanting to do is to place a scribe up in one of these spaces here. It will cost me 5 banners and 3 silver. So I pay that, and then I place my my scribe here, and I also pay an additional silver, so a total of 4. 1 to the supply. Well, actually, all of them to the supply, because these 3 silver will be paid to the supply as well. And then I will gain my food as an immediate reward, and then I will also gain 2 victory points for this particular scribe at the end of the game. And I'll assume that on my second turn I play the scholar, so I get 2 more banners, so that gives me again a total of 5 blue banners. Now, since I've already used my elder for the 2 blue banners, I can't gain any more banners that way or through the trader actions. But since I have 5 banners, I can do moving around the city. That's one thing that I can do. So here it costs 4 banners to move 2 spaces. I have 5, so 1 will be wasted, but that allows me to move 2 spaces. So I would get a red blessing and 2 silver. So after gaining my silver and my blessing, I could decide to do a development action if I have the resources necessary, or to do trade actions for the character that I just played. So now's a good time to pause the video and try a couple of practice turns with the blue banner actions to make sure that you understand how those work. Each round represents 6 days in which you will do work, and then you will rest on the Sabbath. So in playing that, that means that you will have 2 cards in each spot. Remember, you can't have more than 2. So after all players have taken their 6 turns, now you prepare for the Sabbath. You can flip over your player aid and it will describe the steps that you need to take. Now, in preparing for the Sabbath, the first thing that we do is we use any leftover workers that we have as farmers or laborers. We can choose which one we want to do. Now, notice over here where the laborer is here, and we have a choice of either collecting 2 different resources of our choice, cinder, stone, or wood, or collecting a resource, cinder, stone, or wood, and 2 silver. That's if we take the laborer action. On the other hand, we could do a farmer action and we would gain 2 food. So this is not actually an action that is done on the Sabbath because we're preparing for the Sabbath. This is as if these workers had been working all week before. The next thing you do is resolve the prophet's judgment. You do that by looking at the card, and based upon the round and your position of your flame relative to the prophets, what will happen. So in this particular case, if I were before space 3, before Zechariah, I would gain 1 food. However, if my flame is between Zechariah and Haggai, which is on space 9, this symbol here means that I retrieve either a trader or an elder. So this would mean I would take one of my workers, it doesn't matter which one I choose, and then I've retrieved them. So now, since I'm preparing for Sabbath, they need to be assigned to either the laborer action or the farmer action. And again, we gain the resources of the reward. So if I use the farmer action, I would gain 2 food. Now that we've finished preparing for the Sabbath, we actually act on the Sabbath. It's the last day of the week, and so we will have to first pay one food per working, except for the Levites. We do pay the workers that are in the gate spots and the scribes as well. We lose 2 victory points per worker if you cannot feed them, or if you choose not to feed them. Also, then you would tuck your required character cards and score all the tucked character cards. What that means is, from the character cards that you have played during the previous week or round, you choose one of them that you wish to basically no longer use. And you will get the benefit of the banner that's shown here, but you will also, for each round, get the benefit as shown at the top of the card. So for example, if I tuck the look at, then I get a gray banner for most of my, added to my actions, and then I get 1 immediate victory point plus 1 victory point for each gate that I own. Next, you'll move the prophets. And the way you do that is look at the next round level and see where the prophets should go. So for example, in this particular case, Zechariah goes to spot 6 and Haggai goes to spot 11. Next, you'll retrieve all the workers from your player boards. Notice that that does not mean from the main board, such as the gatekeepers or the Levites or the scribes. It's just the ones that you've placed on your own player board. If you have the leader in the altar track, meaning that your flame was there first, then you gain an extra worker. Now, whenever you have flames stacked on top of each other, the one on the bottom is considered the leader. That's because as it gets to that spot, if another one comes along, it will be stacked on top. The next thing you'll do is you'll take all the character cards that you played during the previous week, shuffle them together to form a new draw deck. Now, in most cases, you will already have 4 cards in your hand, but in round 2, you will only have 3, so you'll need to draw the top card off of your draw deck. So that concludes the Sabbath, and now you're ready for the next round. But first, you have to pass the shofar to the next player in a clockwise direction. And once you complete 3 rounds, you do your in-game scoring, and the player with the highest score wins. Let's now talk about how the AI works. So first you want to pay attention to the AI reference card. In general, the AI tries to behave like any player, but the cards will tell you what actions it's going to take. And in the middle of the card, it shows you exceptions for the AI, such as, for example, instead of gaining resources, such as stone, wood, and cinder, it gets gold. And instead of getting food, it gets silver. In addition, if it can't do a trade, it moves the tent 1, and instead of doing retrieving a trader or an elder, it will move the tent 1. First, we will turn over the focus card, which has the lion on the back, and we will do a trade action. And the AI will try to spend as much silver as possible, following the same rules as normal players. Next, you will turn over a scheme card that has the lamb on the back, and you will try to do the schemes from the top to the bottom. Now, here on the left-hand side of this little greater than or arrow symbol, it shows you what's needed in order for that action to be taken. So, for example, for the top action, which is building a gate, you need to have 1 worker and 2 gold. In our particular case, we only have 1 worker and 1 gold, so we look at the next lower down scheme. That requires 2 gold. We still don't have enough, so we go down to the bottom one, which has no requirements, but you gain a worker and a gold. Now let's consider the next turn for the AI after they've done the trading. We have 2 workers and 2 gold. That meets the requirements of the top scheme, and so they will try to work on the temple. Follow the instructions as shown on the scheme card actions. First, we will pay 2 gold to place a Levite at the next position. So we ignore the food costs on the left side, but we'll always use 2 gold to place a Levite. And then we will gain the immediate reward. Here in this case, we'll gain a cinder. But they don't gain cinder. Instead, they will gain a gold. Next, for each Levite, they will try to contribute to the temple by putting gold in there. If they have a gold, they will place it in the leftmost, bottommost area. If they're able to place gold, that they will increase by getting 2 immediate victory points, and they will also gain any rewards on the right-hand side. If they gain food, they will convert it to silver. If they don't have gold in order to place in the temple, they will spend 1 silver to gain a gold, and if they don't have silver, they will move their flame up the altar track. As they move up the altar track, they will gain rewards, again, exchanging food for silver. Now let's consider the situation where they're trying to build a wall and clear the rubble. So they are able to do that if they have at least 2 gold. So if you see the symbol 2 plus or 1 plus, it doesn't mean 2 plus a gold, it means 2 or more gold, or 1 or more. When they're building a wall or a gate, they will use the focus card starting at the gate that's on there. So for example, in this case, they'll start at the east gate and the arrow points in the direction that they'll move to try to find a matching spot. So in this particular case, they start at the east gate and they're going to go counterclockwise. So they look for a space that has, first of all, that where they're building a wall as opposed to a gate, and they will prefer areas that have resources over areas that don't have resources. So we'll skip this place and come to this first wall here that has some resources. We will clear the rubble, taking gold for each resource, such as the cinder and the stone. So we'll get 2 gold. Notice that for clearing the rubble, we move up the red blessing by 1 space. So the AI had 2 gold, they gained 2 gold, and they move up their red blessing. The next thing that they will do is they will always spend 3 gold to either build a wall or a gate. They'll take the top card off of their wall deck and gain the rewards that are shown on the bottom of the card. In this case, it's 3 cinders, so they will gain 3 gold. In the rare case that they're instructed to build a wall, but they can't find any place where they can build one, or for example, that there has no rubble so that they won't wind up with 3 gold, then their turn comes to an end. If they're instructed to build a gate, they follow the same basic approach. However, if they cannot build the gate, then they go to the next lower item on the scheme list. If they are able to build the gate, then they place a worker there and gain any immediate rewards. Let's now consider the situation where you are going to place a scribe. Notice that this symbol may require or instruct them to build or place a scribe at the highest row or at the lowest row. If they can't afford to build at the highest row possible, but can afford a lower row, they just move down lower row until they can afford it. If they can't find any row that they can afford, then you go to the next lowest level, or the next lowest scheme. Now the cost of placing a scribe is not the cost shown on the left-hand side. It's a formula, which is the victory points minus 1 for every row below where you're going to place the scribe that is completely filled with non-white workers. Now we don't have any rows that are completely filled with non-white workers, and we want to place at the highest possible row, so that would be this row. It has victory points of 3, so the cost to place a scribe in either this spot or this spot would be 3 gold. So as we said, if I can't afford that, then I can place a scribe at the next lowest level, which would be 2 gold. Now, in most cases, you will find that there will be multiple options of where to place your scribe. And the way you will determine that is to look at the focus card and divide it up. So for example, here we have 2 particular options where we could place our scribe. So we divide the card vertically in half, and wherever the black square with the arrow is, that's where we'll place it. So if I were to divide this card in half, the black square would be on the right, so we would place our scribe on the right tile. If, on the other hand, we had 3 options, such as 2 scribes next to each other, we would divide the focus card by thinking or imagining a line between the first and second from the left, and the third and fourth on the right, coming from the left to right. So we divide it up so that the 2 areas, the 2 spots in between, are in the middle section. So since the black square is in the middle section, we would choose the middle tile. Now, if there are 4 or more options available, you divide up the card into the 4 sections. And again, if there's 4, that tells you where to place the scribe. But if there's 5, you ignore the middle option. If there's 6, then you ignore the 2 middle options. So in this particular case, we would place our scribe on the 2nd tile from the right. When considering the branching options and paying silver, to branch off a white worker, they have to have a silver. They will branch off of their worker if they can. They will only branch off the white worker if they have a silver. If they don't have silver, then they will branch off your worker. They will not pay you with silver from their supply, but you will be paid from the main supply. If they place a scribe on the normal tiles, scroll tiles, they will ignore all of the icons and they will only gain the value from the victory points. So they will even ignore immediate rewards. If they place a worker on the hero tiles, they will gain a hero card, but they don't get any benefit from the banner, but they will get the immediate reward. So now let's talk about how the AI resolves the Sabbath. So flip over the card, and on the back side we see for the Prepare for Sabbath, they will resolve the prophet's judgment similar to a normal player, but they are going to use the description shown here on the top left of their board. The behavior and actions during the Sabbath are explained on the player aid. After the Sabbath, you'll just shuffle the focus and the scheme cards and create new draw decks. And the AI player can gain rewards from being the leader on the altar track. The bottom of the player aid shows you how the in-game scoring works. It's very similar to the players. You will do a conversion and then check the victory points. 2 exceptions are that you don't have any development tiles, so you won't get points for those. And you also do not count the victory points on the scroll tiles themselves. You do get victory points for the scribes in the rows, but you don't get them for the tiles themselves. So that's how you play Ezra and Nehemiah. I hope the video has been helpful and that you enjoy playing the game.